You know, the people who watch my main channel may believe that I'm a man of taste, but look at this Red Bull with cold foam in a glow-in-the-dark cup that I made as my beverage for today.
Wow, is that a dirty Red Bull? Is that what the kids would be calling that
I
these
just
days?
found out that's what they call them, yes. And I bought it because after we talked about the cold foam in, I think, last week's episode, or maybe 2 weeks ago, Bree wanted me to start buying cold foam, and so now I'm putting them in Red Bulls, and here we are. Who am I even anymore?
Wow, you have made quite the transformation. You're a Costco guy now. You're a cold foam guy now.
Also, I thought that Red Bulls always came in small cans, so they were like a lower sugar type of thing just by nature of being lower volume, but this is like a 12-ounce can of Red Bull, so it's just like 50 grams of sugar, and then you add cold foam to it. It's a disastrous beverage choice. I regret it already.
I think they come in like 24-ounce sizes now, too. Like you can get a Red Bull the size of your forearm.
Red Bull tall boy. Jeez.
Ugh, yucky.
What other news am I going to regret hearing about this week?
Notable California chef Valentino Luchin was arrested for robbing 3 banks in one day on September 10th. This marks the chef's second foray into federal crime, following a similar incident back in 2018 that landed him a brief stint in county jail.
So based on some of these comments that I'm seeing on the online version of this story, this guy's getting like the criminal of the people reputation, a la Luigi Mangione. There's people saying like, I was at his restaurant that night and I saw him there. Like, no, free him, free this man.
First of all, that makes no sense. This man did not own a restaurant at this point in time. His last restaurant closed in 2016, which is what led him to robbing a bank the first time around.
I guess the most compelling argument that I could make from a non-lawyer's perspective, and I should have asked Bree what she thought of all of this, is that, if I was his lawyer, I'd say, he didn't really rob the bank. Really, he just entered the bank and then politely yet firmly asked for some free money, right?
Something tells me that still probably counts as robbery, especially if we're talking about his first incident in which he was threatening them with what turned out to be a BB gun. I did not hear anything about that in regards to these 3 recent robberies, though. So it does kind of sound like what you're talking about, where it was firm but polite, I guess. It didn't work out well for him the first time around, though. So to not just double down, but triple down and do 3 in one day
Yeah, he
without a
quadrupled
weapon.
down. So I think
Yeah.
on his second round, he was like, well, that was so easy. I should just do that over and over again. It turns out if you ask nicely or maybe a little firmly that they'll just give you money. I feel like he felt probably a little emboldened to just keep doing it because that's 3 robberies in one day.
Yeah, and the first time around, there was not a lot of information to be found online about this first incident, unfortunately. I saw some sources saying that he was never actually charged, and some saying that he did serve 1 year in county jail and then 3 years probation for it. And the timeline does seem like that is the case. So if he only got a year for it the first time around, I guess I could understand giving it a try again and being like, well, maybe it'll work out this time. If not, I have a roof over my head and 3 hot meals a day for the next year or so.
I'll tell you what will work out, undoubtedly, his movie deal or a Netflix drama TV series deal, because this has, a media entertainment written all over it, no? A failing restaurant, a guy down on his luck, and he decides he's going to rob a bank not just once, but 3 times in one day.
I don't know that I could see like a documentary, like a Netflix style, like true crime thing panning out. I see a lot of publications talking about him as a celebrity chef. And I don't know if maybe I'm just like really out of touch in the like California restaurant scene. When I think celebrity chef, I think Gordon Ramsay, Guy Fieri, like Food Network type folks.
Oh, no. Media doesn't work like that at all anymore. Think of how many times you've read like a Times 100 hottest influencers and it's like, Mr. Fluppy Wuppy? Well, who is that?
But this guy isn't even like an influencer. I think I have more Instagram followers than him.
Ooh.
I looked up his LinkedIn page and there's not a lot of information there. There was a personal chef website that he was registered on that has since taken his page down. It doesn't look like he's been doing that well recently. As one might expect, if you are 62 years old and decide to rob 3 banks in one day, it probably comes off the tails of some less than ideal life situations. There is a part of me that wants to be like, oh, this is like a really great example of how volatile the restaurant industry can be. Even the most seasoned professionals like face really hard times. But, if you kind of ruined your reputation by robbing a bank like almost 10 years ago, and now you're complaining that it's like extra hard for you to find work, that feels like it might be your own fault.
Speaking of chefs ruining their reputation, I guess I did this by asking you what do you think is the more cursed ending for your restaurateur legacy? Getting caught doing a robbery or being bested by an influencer like that influencer in San Francisco who made that guy shut his restaurant down because he wasn't nice to her?
I think that the influencer one is maybe more embarrassing. I think that there is something kind of cool about robbing a bank. I don't know if that's a controversial statement. I do not endorse that behavior,
Well,
but
not
I do think
controversial, but definitely bleak in that you're better off doing like old school, old timey crimes. Man, stick them up versus like, I'm
yeah.
sorry, ma'am, we can't accommodate you at this restaurant.
The Trump administration has announced that they will be canceling the annual government report on food insecurity, claiming that it is over politicized and redundant, ending a 30-year practice that served as the main tool for evaluating hunger in the U.S.
So obviously, I hear this and I get upset, and I'm trying to filter news personally in a way that I don't let that be my only reaction. It's like getting mad online, and so I'm trying to, I guess, do that on the behalf of viewers. And I guess, do we have any sense of how much it costs to collect these data? Because I guess if the reports are typically similar year over year, and they also generate like they cost a ton of cash to generate, then I guess I could see the argument that we should save money by not doing it. But then again, I don't expect any potential costs savings to be redirected towards, say, feeding hungry people. So I think we're all kind of just assuming that it's truly just about the optics, which is like trying to bury any potential bad reports about your citizens going hungry.
That is the way that I definitely feel about it. I tried really hard to find like any actual concrete numbers that relate to this survey, and I came up really dry. It is something that is done by like the Census Bureau, and there is information on the money that they are given to conduct all sorts of surveys, but I could not find anything that relates to this in particular.
I guess if you imagine a very optics focused administration, I would naturally argue like which is worse, which is a worse look for the country, having hungry citizens or stopping the collection of data. But then again, I guess the nature of changing people's focus regarding what to be mad at on an hour by hour basis might make it so that there isn't much outrage. And that's why it's like, okay, I'm glad that we're at least talking about this on our little show so that people will understand that this isn't happening anymore. It's just one of those confounding things where it's just like, really? Are we really doing this?
The gut reaction is to be like, well, gee, doesn't it look bad to get rid of this thing? Doesn't that look bad? Doesn't, the numbers that we're getting from this look bad? At the end of the day, in eliminating this, you're not only just like eliminating the data, it becomes like an out of sight, out of mind thing for a lot of people. There are no hungry people if we have no data on hungry people, right?
No war in Ba Sing Se. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
What's funny is I was actually talking about this yesterday in my wildest like tech utopia, where whether I'm using like smart glasses or my phone or whatever, I can just ask my smart assistant to Google stuff for me. That's always been like my North Star of like, wouldn't that be cool? That's all I really ever cared for as a moonshot. But thanks to AI summaries on every search engine, even my own Google searches have gotten worse. Like, I don't know if you've ever argued with somebody about something and you both Google it and then you both get the answer that you want. And so I have this like gnawing dystopian ache about things being post-truth and impossible to verify as is, which only gets worse when things like government agency data reports cease to continue.
We talk about like post restaurant and stuff on this show a bit, and I think your phrase there about post truth is unfortunately really relatable to a lot of people. It does feel like everything is so hard to verify in this day and age, and it's just getting worse and worse. And people watching this show might be like, Willa, what do you expect me to do about this? I can't do anything. I don't want to just send a a pre-written email to my senators about this. To which I say, like, the best thing that you can do is to get involved with your community about it. I know that that sounds really cliche. But I think in this day and age, people on the internet, especially influencers, are really pushed like to talk about all of this stuff. You have to talk about every single horrible thing that's going on in the world, or else you're an out of touch idiot or whatever. But I do wish specifically I saw more people in the food sphere talking about stuff like this, because it does relate back to it. If you are somebody that loves food and loves cooking, you can't separate the politicized nature of it all. The statement that this is overly politicized is really funny and silly to me, because food is inherently political. And anyways, what I'm trying to say is, like, bake an extra loaf of bread for your neighbor. If you got a big garden and you're growing 500 zucchini that you can't possibly eat or freeze or turn into bread, give them away to your friends and neighbors. Volunteer at the soup kitchen. Something.
You're about to activate my old man tells story trap card because my buy nothing group is like my most valuable asset in my new HOA. And it's so good for the acquisition and removal of stuff, but it's also like really fundamentally changed my perspective on how much we have to tolerate in order to maintain communal relationships. This is very similar to the pickleball HOA story that I told last week, but like, one thing that really bothers me is like you're really not supposed to talk about any commerce, any trade. Like, where can I go buy a TV? Obviously, it's a buy nothing group, and so I was like always reporting posts to admin, being like, this person's asking where to buy stuff, and then they'll get around it and be like, no, I'm asking for the gift of knowledge. I'm asking for the free gift of knowledge regarding where I can buy this thing, and it's just like the other day I needed a stroller to take the baby to something. I had a stroller already, but it had to be a specific kind. I was like, does anybody have this stroller? They said yes. They left it outside. I was able to pick it up that night and use it for the trip the next day. And it's just like, this is such a valuable thing that it's really not worth causing a stink for little things. And I think we all fundamentally understand that when it's just like, okay, yes, your uncle is annoying, but like you love your family and so you tolerate it and things like that for when you guys all get together. And I think the larger you can expand that circle with like how much you tolerate in order to come to a net positive, the better.
YouTube channel Good Work's latest video, titled "Why Are We Eating Slop?" humorously explores the young professionals' affinity for slop bowl fast casual meals like Chipotle and Cava. But despite their popularity, many slop peddlers have seen declining sales this past year, with declining value proposition the perceived culprit.
So I do realize that one of my unfortunate traits is treating YouTube titles as way more important than they need to be and more important than I should treat them. I had a hard time getting through this video because there's no need to call bowl foods slop. And I think that now that Subway is no longer in vogue, bowl food presents one of the few ways to get a vegetable at lunchtime. By the way, remember Salad and Go, which I talked about last week? This is why I love Salad and Go so much. It's like getting vegetables into the hands of people. Also, right after that video came out, our report on Salad & Co., they closed like a ton of locations in Texas. And, props to Derek for thinking on his toes with regards to how to alter our reporting on the Ben & Jerry's story, which changed like a mere 3 days after we reported on it. But I wasn't going to make him do double duty by talking about Salad & Co. closing. And I'm rambling plenty, but that's all that to say, like, people need a way to get vegetables into their bodies, and unless you're eating a salad, which is a type of bowl food anyway, how are they supposed to do it without bowl food? So the idea of calling it slop is so stupid to me. Slop as a word has lost all meaning, like woke or scam. It's just something that you say for a certain vibe.
I am guilty of using this verbiage, I will be honest. I do think of something like Chipotle as being kind of like a slop meal, but that's more about the everything involved in it. It's not just the slop presentation of like bowl of food coated in sauce. It's also like the fact that it's being like assembled with apathy or perhaps even hate by the employee
That's
behind the
just
counter.
That's just by nature of it being a fast casual restaurant, which people like fast casual restaurants. And it's like Chipotle was one of the few fast food restaurants where they're like, we care about our chicken source and we're trying to get them organic or free range or whatever they were at the time. And also when I think of like, what is a bowl of slop? It's gruel. Like Chipotle has texture, it has meats, it has diced things. They're not all mushed. They're not all blended. So I just really can't get past that. And even if I did, it's like, okay, great. Lunch is a status symbol, which we all understand. Or I guess not, because when I posted a video like 1 or 2 years ago saying like, hey, if your job sees taking your own brown bag lunch to work with you as like a low status activity, you can buy these little paper takeout containers. And a surprising number of folks were like, what do you mean? Like people care about whether you brown bag your lunch? And I've always experienced that at my like sort of, white collar desk jockey jobs where they're just like, oh, really? You're not going out to the gastro pub today?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I was hoping that you would mention that old video of yours because it popped into my head when I was watching this. Because most of the people that they talk to in this video seem to fit the profile of like young white collar desk job professional. And there is something to be said about the fact that these people are like, oh yeah, like I eat Chipotle 5 to 7 times a week because I eat it for lunch every day with my coworkers, and sometimes I eat it for dinner too. And there was this one guy who described, like, oh yeah, me and my coworkers, like, we pick a spot and we all hit up this one slop trough restaurant together. And I do think that there is this sort of like status symbol mixed with the camaraderie of it all, of like going out and getting this thing. And it's like, oh ho ho, like, buddy over here doesn't even have to think about packing a sandwich. He can just go hang out with the boys and eat a burrito bowl.
I feel like anybody who orders coffee with regularity understands that, like, when you order coffee in a Starbucks cup, a plastic cup with ice rattling around, it makes a signature sound when you bring it up to your lip, and it just doesn't do that same thing when you bring like a mug of coffee from home. And it's the same thing when you like get a salad in a bowl with a lid on it, and you shake it around and be like, everybody, I'm being healthy, and I spent $15 on this bowl. Like, it shouldn't be outrageous to assert that this is a status move.
It makes me think of like being back in high school and like the cool kids would come to school together and they'd all carpool and they'd be 30 minutes late for first period with Starbucks cups or like a box of Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. And it very much is giving the same vibe. I don't know if maybe I'm just out of touch because I never eat at places like this. I can count on my hands probably the amount of times I've eaten Chipotle in my life. I have never so much as seen a cava or a sweet green, let alone eaten at one. I think there's maybe 3 Chipotle locations in the entire state of Maine. So I'm not with it with the slop trough restaurant.
Now, every time that you start a sentence with, I might be out of touch, but we could just end it there. Yes.
Yeah, that's rural Maine for you. There's the closest Chipotle is over an hour away from me.
I don't really know if Splendid Table is still a big show. I believe I stopped listening when the host either quit or died. I forgot. But I remember in like 2015, 2016, they were so ahead of their time regarding things like Nashville hot chicken. I was like, what do you mean they dip it in hot oil? Yuck. And they would report on like bowl food being a big trend. And that was also around the time that these casual reports were coming out speculating that sandwiches were a major cause of like poor health trends in America because sandwiches were the default way to distribute food to your mouth. And like early on, I just came to believe that bowl food was the number one choice for default food format if I could just choose one and move people away from sandwiches or burgers or wraps. I don't know. I've never really hated on it. And I think that this is just a sensationalist title. There's a lot to think about in terms of like the economics of it all and the trends, but this is just one of their more sensational titles that didn't get to a meaningful conclusion. And I usually watch good work vids all the way through, but this one I could not finish.
I do think it's really interesting that like the health conscious aspect of it gets touched on a lot. And like I said, I've never been to or seen like a sweet green or like, I don't really know much about their menu. Obviously getting like a to-go salad is a lot healthier than a lot of the other options that you could get for lunch. But when I think of like a Chipotle burrito bowl, I'm like, oh, that is like a 1,200 calorie meal that on top of that is like not going to reheat well later because there are like cold elements to it. But to work against myself there, I do immediately then see the appeal in a slop trough bowl because if you're wanting to eat like a bowl style meal, and you get something like that for lunch, you are able to eat it in its like ideal form where the hot components are hot and the cold components are cold. If you were to make something like that and bring it to work, you've either got hot lettuce on your bowl that you're microwaving or you're having to assemble like 4 different things in separate containers at your desk for a lunch. So I do understand that. At the end of the day, it's convenience and I don't understand it. It doesn't feel that convenient to me when it's like $25 for a burrito bowl.
It's convenience, it's status, it's health. And for you to use the term slop trough mere seconds ago after my impassioned plea for everyone to stop just leads me to believe this is another Sisyphusian thing where I'm just never going to make any progress on the culture at large. And I guess I'm fine with that. So next story, please.
This week, I have some interesting products to give you. We have Van Leeuwen and Carnival Cruise Line ice cream, sunscreen flavored, Sperm Worms gummy male fertility supplements, and Cheez-It Crunch.
A sunscreen flavored ice cream, I get it. It's tricky branding, but it's just like really coconut banana boat scent / flavor you can replicate pretty easily. Like it's one of those visceral scents that you can just be like, oh yeah, that's like I've had plenty of cocktails that taste like sunscreen. So I don't feel like this is incredibly groundbreaking, but it'll be one of those things that gets reported on a lot on Instagram posts where it's just like, isn't this wacky?
And that's exactly what they want. The whole ad campaign behind this is that they made it and then they were like, Just kidding, though, it's not for sale, and we're only gonna make it for sale if you generate enough buzz about it online. Everybody post your reactions to this concept, which I think is bizarre. I do have one stupid thing to say, though, and it's that this immediately makes me think of that awful Benson Boone song, and ever since I saw this on Instagram, I've had this awful earworm in my head that goes, "Sunscreen ice cream at Campaign Van Leeuwen."
Oh, very good.
And yeah, that alone makes me hate this. The fact that that has been stuck in my head for days.
Yeah, it feels so mystical and magical. The sperm worms gummy male fertility supplements, why would they not just call them gummy sperms? Like saying sperm worm really.
It rhymes. Come
Yeah,
on.
but so does gummy sperm and gummy worm. Like saying sperm worm is just this
Oh,
disgusting thing. Sounds like an infection or something.
ugh, ew. I gotta say, as much as it does sound disgusting, I think the branding behind this is incredible. It's, it's like a gummy vitamin, you're only supposed to eat like 2 of them a day, so they have them individually packaged in these little tear open containers that look like condoms, and they're the 2 little sperm worms inside of it that create this ridge that like looks like there's a condom inside of the container, and I think that the packaging is genius. I can't hate it. It is created by the same people that, I don't know if you heard of this, but the world's first sperm race back in April, and it was like a pre-recorded thing that they tried to present as like a live event of like a microscopic racetrack with a literal sperm race. And it's just to like raise awareness, raise funds for male infertility. So, it's not a bad cause behind it all.
It's the maha of it all, where it's like everybody's unhealthy. Let's fix this by doing beef tallow French fries. It's like people are declining male fertility. Let's fix it with candy.
It's supposed to be fertility focused, but a lot of the verbiage on the website was crass at best. Um Using words like thick and
Ugh.
heavy and
Yeah.
ropes. Um
Uh,
and yeah, it doesn't make me want to eat it, that's for sure.
all right, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. So somebody surely is running the numbers and finding out that calling them Cheez-It Crunch is more advantageous than calling it an entirely new snack, right? Like even Nerds gummy clusters, the biggest win in the candy world I've ever seen in my entire life since I was born, was anchored to Nerds. But then again, that's a pretty recognizable candy shape and color, and like the Nerds on the outside of a Nerds gummy cluster are irrefutably Nerds. Or you compare that to like a cheesy square, you could call that Cheez-It, you could call it Cheese Nip. So I just wonder, why wouldn't they call it something else? And my assumption is that they ran a ton of focus groups and they're like, this doesn't sound very good unless you call it Cheez It Crunch.
Yeah, it looks like a little like kind of classic window pane pretzel that you might see in Chex Mix. I don't think it is like a pretzel itself, but I think it's going to have that same sort of like texture to it. And I think it will be fine. I feel like Cheez It has done some like really interesting, I don't know if I want to say innovations. I feel like that's maybe a stretch for a snack food. But they've come out with a ton of little different variations. There's the Cheez It grooves where they're like slightly textured like their corduroy pants. There's like the Cheez It, I don't know if they're thins or crisps, where it's like a little wavy Cheez It that's like a little chip almost. The extra toasted ones. It just feels like they're really hitting like every single possible variation that they could at this point.
Yeah, Cheez It is trying to catch up with Oreo in terms of too many variants, and they might just win.
That's exactly what it feels like.
I can see on the notes ahead of us that the Q&A that you've got for us is very easily asked and answered. I already have my answer locked and loaded. It's one word. Go ahead. Let everybody else decide.
Our Q&A this week, our segment What's Eating You, we have a submission from Discord member Safe. Boneless wings are not just chicken nuggets. Chicken nuggets are ground chicken breaded with breadcrumbs with sauce on the side. Boneless wings are a cut of chicken breaded with flour tossed in sauce. I think a lot of recipes have small distinctions that are considered when talking about authenticity. And just because these are seen as low-quality foods doesn't mean the minor details don't matter. I rest my case. Also, please answer your favorite wing or vegan wing sauce. Include Derek. Shout out Derek, as always. Safe from the Discord.
Boneless wings are just chicken nuggets. It doesn't have to be breadcrumbs. It could be flour. Boneless wings are just chicken nuggets. Wings don't even need to be breaded. And so boneless wings, the fact that they do have to be breaded, I see that the argument is like whole muscle cuts versus ground chicken, but not all nuggets are made from ground chicken to begin with. Just, I guess, like McNuggets are. But yeah, no, sorry.
Something I do relate to as somebody that doesn't eat meat is the calling something something else just to get the point across. A boneless wing is meant to evoke the whole muscle cut of eating a chicken wing. Whereas, that's a very different eating experience from a chicken nugget, which is generally ground chicken. I would agree with that. Not always breadcrumbs. Look at a McDonald's chicken nugget. It's like battered. But it's like saying like a vegan chicken wing is not chicken or a wing, but it tells you what it's trying to kind of give you the experience of. So I don't think boneless wings are chicken nuggets, but I don't think they're wings either.
Wings allude to a preparation style, and so boneless wings still count, just like the guy who choked on boneless wings with bones in them. That was one of the very first stories we ever reported on. Yes, that's settled science. It's just a means to suggest what it might be. But if you get rid of the sauce, it's just a chicken nugget, so there's no point in... I'm not saying it in a derogatory manner. I'm not saying it in a complimentary manner. It is what it is. And that's the nice part about being right, is you don't have to argue much. You just get to be right.
Well, what's your sauce of choice here? We do have one question to answer for and left.
Wing Daddies in El Paso does something called...
Wing Daddies,
yeah, it's
okay.
terrible. The floor is always wet. It stinks. But the wings are good.
Ew.
They do one that's honey hot. And I know you're thinking, that means hot honey. No, it's like just regular buffalo sauce, but with honey added. So it's like honey hot. That's a perfect, a lot of times I'm trying to decide between like a buffalo savory type or like a... what do you call it? Mango habanero sweet type, and those taste better, but you can't dip them in ranch the way that you can a buffalo, and so splitting the difference between the two, perfect answer. Just like lemon pepper wet splits the difference between two things that people want.
I don't go out to eat at wing places ever, so I don't have like a generic answer for this. But if you live anywhere that you can get a product from a company called Blues Hog, it is a garlic Parmesan buffalo sauce, and it is fantastic. If you can get beyond the name Blues Hog, it's great.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You're taking your two favorite things, like you love lemon pepper because it is, or what was it? Garlic parm?
Garlic parm and buffalo.
Yeah, so you're taking a dry rub like garlic parm, but you're saying it's just not quite saucy enough. So you take buffalo and you mix the two. Whatever your top two favorite coverings are for a wing, you should just combine those, find a way to make it work, and it will work.
So my favorite wings are probably either the Arizona Ranch, which is just like a flavorful, spicy ranch from Quaker Steak and Lube, or, quote, the most interesting sauce in the world from a spot called Big Shot Bob's. Pretty difficult to explain if the esoteric name wasn't going to explain that for you. And then if I needed just some sort of generic, like non-associated sauce, just like a 8 out of 10 spicy buffalo, something that goes well with ranch or blue cheese. We don't discriminate. But yeah, bye.
Well, if anyone would like to submit to our little Q&A segment at the end, you can email me, willow@internetshaquille.com. Do you think boneless wings are chicken nuggets? Give me your hot food takes, your weird food opinions, your questions. Let me know.
I did just get back from a work trip for Bree's office, and what's interesting about seeing the millennials come into power, right? They're no longer the interns of the job market. They're like the older, like middle management and sometimes even management position, is like seeing people with the confidence of having moved up in the corporate ladder, but also still being millennials. And they do that millennial trend where it's just like every opinion that I hold is not only worth arguing, but worth defending with my life. It really changed the vibe of every like corporate dinner that we had during that event. It's just like people have to get into shouting matches with like whether or not The Office is a good show. And I feel like this is just, that's what we're going to expect as we get older. As this generation ages, it's just going to be more and more intense arguments from people who are more and more in power about things like whether boneless wings are or are not chicken nuggets.
That's basically what the show is, right? It's just our weekly space to yell at each other about these things.
No. Once this show becomes reaction content, that's when I'll start using this. I'll start using the word slop unironically. Eater's Digest is published every Friday morning on YouTube with video and Spotify with audio. You can support the show by subscribing, by sharing it with somebody who might like it, or by joining our Discord at patreon.com/Shaq.